This is the Griffin Realty Group Ask-A-Griffin podcast, episode number 19. Communication. How do sellers get honest with themselves about why they're selling? Are you a home seller or buyer who has questions about selling or buying residential property, but you can't find an easy way to get your answers? Well, then, hey, you're definitely in the right place. I'm Danny Griffin, the founder of the Griffin Realty Group and the host of the Ask-A-Griffin podcast. Now, to help you take immediate action to get started in the right direction, if you need to sell or buy property right now or in the very near future, you can take advantage of our free step-by-step guides waiting for you at griffincourses.com. All right, let's get started. Communication. What does he mean? Well, I could use another terminology that I like, and it's called market making. That once we've gone through pricing it right and we've done everything we could do to recondition the property and you've staged it and now marketing has begun, what happens next? Now, communication, of course, happens throughout that entire process, but what I mean is that market-making communication. Did the co-broke come through and show the property with me, the listing agent? Did the direct buyer call on the phone, off the sign, online, come to an open house? What is happening in that market-making communicative stage? And the first part that we deal with in communication as that whole stage begins to happen, is to answer some questions that we get all the time. How do sellers get honest with themselves about why they're selling? I mean, I've only had sellers ask me that after the fact when they look back and say, whew, it was tough to admit that I really wanted to sell this house. I was so emotionally attached to it. I was just thinking about that where we had a scenario where a gentleman had built a very specific house for his very specific large family with all sorts of materials that he used inside that were very specific and not necessarily what the local buyer was expecting. So it wasn't easy. However, there was a process that we went through. So let's go through. How do you do this up front? Because this can be very painful. If you don't get honest with yourself as a seller really prior to, and then deal with it along the way, you're going to have these emotional breakdowns or outbursts, whether they're in the privacy of your own home or with your realtor. Either way, you should deal with this. I highly recommend. In fact, we don't take listings anymore from sellers that don't have a real reason why they're going to go through this process. You can't just say, well, if you can get me we just can't get you a number. This isn't a black, magic type of show where we pull out the top hat and out comes the rabbit. It doesn't work like that. You have to have a real reason why you're selling it because you are about to go through a very difficult financial and emotional transaction. Doesn't matter how savvy you are. I know if you're listening to this, maybe you're going to push back on me. Well, I can. Believe me, I've done it for 21 years and I've been around business all my life. It is difficult even when I go to sell it. I have to have a real why. I procrastinated my own house sale last year a little bit in the beginning because I wasn't fully connected to the why. So let's go through these points. Number one, and this is something I had to do because I had raised my kids also in this house. Admit to yourself that there's going to be a sense of loss when you sell. Even if your situation isn't like mine, even if it was just you single and you were living there, that is a piece of your life. It's a piece of your life. And it really meant a lot to you. Even if it was bad times, or they were bad times, right? Even if so, and you're leaving it behind, there's still a sense of loss of that phase of life. And you have to admit that that's going to be difficult. Now, on the other side of the sale, consequently, I would tell you, try to understand that is really going to be a wonderful place. Try to keep out there, but admit that there's going to be a sense of loss when you close that door. You might even go buy the house a bunch of times after it's gone. You might come many years later. It's okay. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with you. This is home. You watch any very basic show about survival, one of the first things that you're going to do is build home. and you're going to live inside of it, and things are going to happen in your life that are emotional, and you become attached to this place that kept you safe, kept your memories, built your memories. That's a very big thing. You're going to lose connection to it. Admit it, and it's okay to feel bad about it. But, like I said, a big why will help you pull it through if you can see what's on the other side. Now, the next thing, again, remember, how do sellers get honest with themselves about why they're selling? The next thing is, beyond the sense of loss, it's more of a caveat. Beware that the fear of being taken advantage of is keeping you from fully communicating this why. See, we always get scared to be vulnerable. So it's very difficult when you're having a fistful of realtors, perhaps. Let's just say you're having the old cattle call, and you're going to say, I'm going to interview 5 or 6 people. You don't even know why, but you're going to. Let's presume that that's the case. Or maybe you just have one. And you're guarded because, number one, we talked about it. You're talking about home, and now somebody's come into your home, and there's this weird sense of loss, and here's the person that makes it real. There's almost some sort of a conflict with the very realtor that you need to sell the property. So it's a strange setup, but it's all normal. Nothing wrong with this. It's just the way that it is. But inside of us all, there is a fear that that realtor, that person, the process is going to rush us and take advantage of us. And we're going to lose more than just place. We might lose some money. We might get stuck with 2 homes. There's a lot that goes through our head, and we're afraid to a certain extent, or just cautious. I know all the hard exterior people say, I'm not afraid of anything. Well, we all are, but you can call it whatever you want. I prefer to just call mine fear. And so we don't fully communicate early on. And that's not good. When a realtor comes in and you have a real why to sell, be ready for them to come and say, look, I'm just going to tell you, I know this is going to be a little bit emotional for me as I go through the process. The place means a lot to me. The history here, not all of it great. Like I said, it could be some of that too. But I just want you to understand I might need a little bit of a process. Wonderful. No problem. And I also want you to go a little bit more slowly with me on a couple of things because I don't want the sense of being taken advantage of. Wonderful. See, if you can talk to your realtor like that right up front, everything starts off much better in this communication phase that becomes so critical. And again, like I said, communicating permeates the entire process. But where it's really going to be at a boiling point is when people are really coming through your property, and especially as they start to make offers and you feel all these emotions welling up. Get all that going early with your realtor, okay? Because you're not being taken advantage of if you're receiving good and proper guidance. And I'm trying to give it to you so that no matter who you use, you have a sense of understanding, okay? And the last point I want to make in this section here is use the 1 to 10 motivation scale to root out and remove psychological obstacles. What do I mean by this? You might be able to have this conversation that, yeah, I feel something. I feel a little off about this sale, or something's bugging me, and it's more at a subconscious level. Well, what we do when we're talking to people on the phone especially, and then we reiterate it when we meet them face to face, we say, look, on a scale of 1 to 10, how motivated are you to really sell the property? And a number will come out of you, and that number might be an 8, to which I would reply, an 8? It's actually pretty low. Because this is such a big financial and emotional transaction, I feel that the people that go through this the best are already at a 10. But the reason I'm here talking to you on the phone, visiting with you in your home, is to take a look at those 2 points that aren't there. What are you thinking? What's going on there? How come you're not a 10 yet? See, you can do this to yourself. I mean, as a pro, I'm showing you what I do to guide people. It's like real estate therapy. I'm guiding them through this process so they can bring to the surface and make conscious these psychological obstacles. And some of them might end up being physical obstacles. Well, I have always stressed, I know you're supposed to. I've been watching HGTV and I've been looking at Instagram pictures and Pinterest, and I know you're supposed to do this to your landscaping and do that to your roof. Oh, slow down. Let's take it easy. That's my job. Let me go through this property with you. Let me tell you what you should and shouldn't do. Let me tell you what should be completed prior to, if you can, and if not, we'll price out the rest. But let's bring the psychological obstacle down. Let's bring that barrier down. That's why I'm here, as a guide. So you see what I'm saying? You can use that 1 to 10 motivation scale to pull out of you what's actually bothering you. And then with the help and guidance of a good realtor, you can solve it and at least bring it down. Look, folks, I'll tell you this. When you go to sell your property, there's one thing I will guarantee you. You will never be perfectly ready, ever. And there might always be a twinge that when you drive by the house, you look at it and say, there was some good stuff there. You might even regret it. I should have never sold that property. Okay, whatever it might be, let's just deal with the psychology of how to get connected to why you're doing it in the first place. By the way, maybe that's what you should have been doing anyway, was asking yourself, do I really want to sell this? Why am I doing this? All right, so let me go back over this. I'm in this section of our home seller course where we call it communication. So we've talked about pricing, we've talked about conditioning and how that helps pricing, and then staging puts the sizzle on it, and then you have marketing. Finally, after all that, you syndicate it out to the internet and you push it around. Well, that's going to create this section I call communication or market making, where a lot of this comes to a fever pitch and a lot of this is upon you. And these emotions, if they haven't been dealt with prior to that fever pitch, you're going to struggle. So let me reiterate them. 1, okay, how do sellers get honest with themselves about why they're selling? 1, they admit to themselves that there's going to be a sense of loss when they sell. 2, they become aware that fear, or their fear of being taken advantage of, is keeping them from fully being honest with their own realtor. And there's this contentious relationship that can't exist if you want the optimal result. 3, use the 1 to 10 motivation scale to root out and remove psychological obstacles by constantly asking yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, how motivated am I? And if it's not a 10, what do I do about it? Let me summarize it this way in a narrative. Selling a property is one of the single largest emotional transactions most people make in a lifetime. And that can compromise any seller's ability to fully communicate properly. The remedy lies in making sure you have a real reason to sell to begin with, and remembering to keep asking yourself, am I really motivated at a 10 on a scale of 1 to 10? And if not, why not? All right, remember, you can take immediate action to get started in the right direction if you need to sell now, if you need to buy now, or in the near future, by getting our free step-by-step guides. All of this that I talk about on the podcast is in those guides. Nice, easy way for you to consume it and get yourself prepared if you need to do something like this now or in the near future. Also, don't forget, you can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen so that you don't miss out on any insights each time we upload an episode, even if you're just curious and interested in real estate. We also post all of these episodes on all of our social media channels. So remember, you can turn on the notifications for Griffin Realty Group and you won't miss the reminders, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, wherever. We post it everywhere. We also would appreciate it if you would share this content with other people like you that really need the help to get started in this right direction if they're thinking about doing it. Remember, I really appreciate that you're listening to the podcast, but nobody's coming for you. So you have to take action and you have to get to work on your own plan for buying or selling property. And I guarantee you, if you do, it will at least be a bit more pleasurable and you can get through it with less stress. I'll see you in the next episode.